So why did the jury get it right? The jury got it right because they couldn't agree. They were not able to come to a unanimous decision. They had some people like, she's guilty as a mofo. Other people like, she's so obviously not guilty. And other people being like, I have no fucking clue what it is. And all that added up to they couldn't decide. And therefore, it was a hung jury, which was a mistrial. And therefore, they got it right. Because everybody up in the motherfucking comments are disagreeing. And they don't agree. People don't agree. People think it's so obvious she was innocent. I think she hit him with her car. She killed him. But did she know? I don't know. I have doubt. I have reasonable doubt. I have reasonable doubt, which is why I would say not guilty, not because I think she's innocent, not because I don't think she hit him with her car, not because I don't think she killed that man with her car, but because they didn't prove it to me beyond a reasonable doubt. I think it probably happened, but I don't know how exactly, and I don't really know for sure. So that's reasonable doubt, which does not mean I think she's innocent. And then the people, so that's why they got it right, because people can't agree. And if you can't agree, then you have a hung jury, and that's correct. And trying to say people are stupid or idiots or that they're wrong because they don't agree with you is the one finger pointed at thing and four pointed back at you.
CatLoveDreamingPeach.com.
Hello, my lovely peaches. How are you? I'm in my tiny kitchen. I'm trying to make myself some Napa cabbage salad. I have been wanting to make this video all day, but I keep pushing it off because I'm doing other things. So I said, let me just try to record some of this while I'm doing this. The name of this video is Why the Jury Got It Right, Karen Reed, Mistrial, and Reasonable Doubt. Why the jury got it right, Karen Reed, mistrial, hung jury, and why I still think she's guilty though. Do I think she's guilty of second-degree murder? Where's that bowl I was washing? That I'm not decided on. Was it second-degree murder or was it just, vehicular manslaughter? But a lot of people have commented on my video called The Jury Got It Right. And they're like, no, they didn't. Reasonable doubt. Although some people have said she's guilty. And other people have like, she's not guilty. And you're proving my point in the comments. Why they got it right is because of reasonable doubt. And because the fact that people could not agree. People could not agree about whether or not she was innocent or guilty. People are so divided. People can't even agree about what evidence they saw and what it means and the credibility of it and the importance of it and the value of it. So that's why they got it right, because reasonable doubt, not being able to have a unanimous decision. Oh, kid, I'm filming. That's my kid there. Not being able to agree unanimously means a mistrial. A hung jury means they were not able to come to an agreement. The people in the jury, the people in the deliberation room are just as conflicted as the people in the comments. And that is why they got it right. Because they couldn't decide. And if you can't decide unanimously, then the right thing to do is to not come to a verdict. How can you come to a verdict if you can't agree? So that's what makes it correct. Now, I do want to talk a little bit more, but I'm going to make my salad. So I'm going to wash the lettuce, the Napa cabbage, I should say. And I'm going to throw these in the garbage just because that's how I am. Maybe it's a waste, but I don't care. I don't eat this one. So I'll put the rest back away So I do actually believe that Karen Reed hit him with her car, hit John O'Keefe, rest in peace, hit John O'Keefe with her SUV, and that is how he died. I do really believe that. I feel that despite Alan Jackson and David Unetti's best efforts to come up with a third-party culprit, I don't believe that there was any, for me personally, why I said I think it was ridiculous theories is because I don't think it was necessary at all. They didn't need to try to prove that somebody else did it. They just needed to focus on the fact that his injuries were not consistent with a regular pedestrian crash with a vehicle. They could have focused on that. They could have focused on, you know, many people are saying, she said, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. They could have focused on, actually she was saying, did I hit him? Could I have hit him? Which they could have tried to emphasize. That meant she was just as shocked as anyone else if that was a possibility. She didn't think, you know, they could have focused on that. They could have focused on the fact that she was back at his house at a certain time and that she was leaving him messages like a frantic lunatic, which made it seem as if she thought he was cheating on her with another woman. They could have leaned in extremely heavily to that, saying the prosecution is trying to convince you that these angry messages and voicemails and this, you know, angry back and forth Facebook, you know, messages during the day, that was evidence that she was angry and she wanted to kill him. But when in fact it's evidence, allegedly, the defense could have said, it's evidence that she in fact thought he was still alive after she dropped him off at the party. They could have leaned into the fact that she said her stomach was hurting. And they could have talked about how she had a history of medical issues, and so it was true, her stomach was hurting. They could have emphasized the fact that Kaylee, the 16-year-old niece daughter, was home alone, and Karen was concerned about Kaylee and wanted to get back after a night of already being at 2 bars. And if what she said in the messages earlier that day was accurate, she said she was going to a bar. Was that the bar that they were at down the street? Or was that a whole other bar? What was it? The Hill?
The Hillside Bar.
Everybody's Happy at the Hill.
Everybody's Happy at the
Whatever
Hillside.
that place was called. Was she there? Was she at 3 bars? So yeah, the prosecution might want to make it seem like she was drunk as a skunk because she'd been drinking all day, but the defense could try to focus on, she'd been out all day, she was tired, she wanted to go home. She did not want to go in that party. She just wanted to go home, take care of her stomach, get some rest, and be there for the boyfriend's daughter niece. They could have leaned into that. Hello, popping in from the next day to add some clarifying thoughts. So if they had tried, if the defense had tried to focus on the fact that Karen had a tummy ache, Karen wanted to go home and take care of the niece, then the prosecution may have come out and tried to say, yeah, but she was telling Brian Higgins in text messages that she never wanted kids anyway and she shouldn't have to be dealing with this. But then the defense could emphasize, like knowing that they could say that, the defense could say, yes, it's true that she was saying shit in her text messages to Brian Higgins. Yes, she was frustrated. That is true. She was frustrated about the fact that she felt responsible. She felt that this is something that she has to deal with. So while it's true she complained about it, it's also true that she felt that it was her responsibility, and that's why she wanted to go home to take care of the niece. And she felt that John was being irresponsible. In fact, the problem was that she felt that John should be more concerned and John should be the one going home. Not that she didn't want to go home. She wanted to go home too. But she was trying to emphasize to John, I don't feel well and we need to go home and take care of Kaylee anyway. So I think that that's another point that the defense could have pursued more. They could have even leaned into the fact that Karen was kind of insecure and she was a bit high-strung. And yes, it's true that she called him off the hook that day and that night, but they could have leaned into that, saying this, while she's not proud of how she behaved, this shows she was desperate to work things out with him. She was terrified at the idea that things were over. The last thing she wanted was to break up with John. Yes, she was doing the thing on the side with Brian Higgins, but that's again because she felt so betrayed. Maybe it was true that it was her misperception and he hadn't actually cheated on her, but the fact that she said that to Brian Higgins means whether or not it was true, that was her state of mind. And they could have leaned into the idea that she was insecure. She was jealous. She was actually a bit unhinged. We can lean into that. But it didn't lead to murder. It led to her going home to take care of her stomach and the daughter, and then her becoming insanely jealous, well, let's not say insanely, becoming agitated and upset, thinking he was out cheating on her. And that is in fact evidence that she thought he was still alive, not that she had hit him with her vehicle. Again, these are things that the defense could have and maybe still can try to emphasize. In my opinion, the defense didn't need to go anywhere near that third-party culprit. There was no need for that. They could have continued to focus on reasonable doubt. Did she even hit him? They could have really pointed out how they still could have used Dr. Rentschler and Dr. Daniel Wolf, pointing out that the injuries are not consistent with getting hit by a vehicle. Maybe something else happened. We don't know. We'll never know. There was no video. Nobody was there. So instead of coming up with this ridiculous third-party culprit that many people could see as ridiculous and outright reject, which then makes their case seem weaker and makes it seem more likely that she was guilty. To me, if you're blaming it on a false straw man kind of thing, then that's more likely to me that you're guilty because you're trying to deflect and cover it up instead of just saying, like, I absolutely didn't hit him. I don't know what happened after I dropped him off, but it certainly wasn't me hitting him. You know, maybe he was really drunk and he didn't want to go inside the party right away because they had been arguing and he was stressed out and he was trying to cool off, and so he's out there drunk as fuck walking around on the icy lawn and he slipped and he hit his head. We don't know. We'll never know. Okay? But they didn't do that. They tried to pin it on somebody else. And I'm over here trying to cut. Let me put this, see if you can see. Okay, so instead of them focusing on, well, you know, the experts, the independent experts who were hired to do accident reconstruction, they say it's not consistent. His injuries are not consistent with getting hit by a vehicle. They should have focused on that and left out this whole third-party culprit thing. That's my opinion. And then what would Lally? I feel that if Lally's actually going to try to retry this again, he needs to get more evidence that she did delete some ring videos. And I have it over here. And, you know, those voicemails and those messages were not good for her, but they certainly didn't add up to murder, in my view. Or in many other people's view, you know. So I don't know exactly how Lally is gonna. Maybe, as I said, maybe if instead of trying to go for second-degree murder, he goes for vehicular manslaughter with a DUI and leaving the scene of a fatal crime. But then you still have the problem of proving, number one, that he was actually hit by a vehicle, And then proving number 2 that she knew that she hit him with the vehicle. Okay, and so you can't charge her with a DUI involuntary manslaughter if you can't prove that she hit him. And you can't prove that she left the scene of a fatal crime if you can't prove that she hit him. So you got to be able to prove that she could have at least potentially have hit him. Now, I did show in the video that I made, the last one that I made, hold on. The last video I made where I talked about it could have happened. The car could have backed up and nudged him, knocking him down, according to Dr. Rentschler, where he literally decided that she didn't see him without seeing him. And I'm like, the prosecution needs to lean in real heavy to that and say, what do you mean? She could have nudged him? You mean Karen could have hit him with her car is what you're saying. Okay, so you're literally admitting on the stand, Dr. Rentschler, that Karen could have hit him with her vehicle. And for him, Dr. Rentschler, to add the caveat of without seeing him, that's for the jury to decide. That's not for Dr. Rentschler to decide. So in my mind, the fact that Dr. Rentschler admitted outright, she could have hit him. The car could have hit him means she could have hit him. The car could have nudged him means Karen could have hit him. The car could have hit him, knocking him down where he hit his head on the ground means that the car hitting him could have been how he ended up with a cracked skull, which is what killed him, plus the hypothermia. And if Karen hit him with her vehicle in a manner where he got his skull cracked and he was unconscious outside in the freezing cold where nobody could see him and help him, then she murdered that man. Now, did she, well, I won't say murdered, she killed the man. Again, did she know it? Were they fighting so much that she didn't even bother to look back? Did he throw the rocks glass at her vehicle? And that was why there was a plunk clunk that masked the sound of her nudging him. Did she kind of hit him in a way where it knocked the wind out of him, knocked him out, knocked his shoe off, where he hit the ground that might have been frozen enough to be literally like concrete, where he cracked and fractured his skull in a complex fracture, causing brain bleeding and unconsciousness, and that led to hypothermia? Did it happen in such a way where he was just out of the line of sight of everybody coming in and out of that house party? So nobody would have thought to look for him there. Why would they? And the people who witnessed her vehicle driving up there said they also saw her drive away without seeing him, so they figured they both left. Okay, it's not hitting. Follow your heart, vegan blue cheese. I'm going to add some of this because it's not hitting me the way it used to. I don't know what I did wrong. Maybe because I don't have regular nooch and I just have this alternate nooch I don't like as much. So, still like okay, but it's not like the best. I don't know. I think I didn't rinse it well enough. I mean, I rinsed it, but it's too watery. Oh well, mediocre lunch. Okay. It is now literally the next day. It is 12:18 midnight. Monday. Oh dang, I gotta go to sleep because I have work today. But I wanted to wrap up this video and just add some more thoughts. So people have been watching my video. It could have happened, quote, the car could have nudged him. Dr. Andrew Rentschler and star defense witness or nah. Okay, and so I just want to shout out a couple of comments. Thank you, user-UKT said this video should be shared more. Let me see, AF. So that's very cool, and I agree with you. So please click share, click like, click subscribe. And then there's a bunch of other comments. Johnny Reb says the ground doesn't freeze solid in 3 hours. Then Barb says the ground is frozen solid in December in the north like cement. No groundwork until the spring. No graves dug, trees planting, etc. Then I say in 3 hours. It was January 29th. It could have easily been frozen ground. They never tested it, so nobody knows. Then Barb writes, it is frozen like cement since December. It's been freezing like that for thousands of years. I live in the north. It's equal to cement. And I live in the northeast coast. So then wait, Johnny writes back, in the Boston area? Well, speaking of the surface, I looked more into the ground freezing. And so that commenter, Johnny, put the high and low temperatures for that week. And it included in there a 39-degree high on one day. And on another day, it included a 36-degree high. So you may assume, well, obviously the ground couldn't have been frozen because it went above freezing a couple of degrees, the day of. And I said already, like Dr. Rentschler said, that is not enough. You can't just look at the high and low and be like, the ground couldn't have been frozen. He said you have to do a lot of testing, and he didn't get too deep into it. He didn't do the testing, and prosecutor Lally didn't do the testing. So that's a big hole because we don't know. But just a few notes, okay? If the ground actually did slightly defrost just a tiny bit, that little bit of moisture in the ground can actually contribute to a hardening effect during the freeze-thaw cycle. Ice expansion, when water freezes, it expands by 9%, about 9%, and in soil with some moisture, this expansion can press the soil particles closer together, creating a denser and potentially harder structure. Then it says cementing effect. As the ice melts and refreezes, it can act like a natural cement, further binding the soil particles together. This can be especially true in clay-rich soils with finer particles. Wait, clay-rich soil? But does Boston have clay-rich soil? Yes, the Boston, Massachusetts area has clay-rich soil, including a glacial marine clay called Boston Blue Clay, BBC. The BBC was deposited about 14,000 years ago when the Laurentide ice sheet retreated, and its thickness, stress history, and properties can vary by location. For example, at the Newberry research site, the BBC is a 12-meter thick clay with a low plasticity and an over-consolidation ratio of 2:3. The clay-rich Boston till also has a high bearing capacity. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, reading that clay-rich soil can freeze more, and Boston has clay-rich soil. Again, did y'all do your research? Did they test it? No. So could the ground have been as frozen as cement? Yes, it might have been. And then there's a single freeze-thaw cycle with moderate moisture might not create dramatic changes, and saturation matters. Too much moisture could have the opposite effect, and the depth matters as well. So a short warm spell might only thaw the surface layer, but yet overall it can contribute to the hardness for all the reasons that I just said. So yes, it's possible that that slightly higher than freezing temperature might have made the ground softer, or if it was a brief flash and then it was like, hours and hours and hours and hours of below freezing, it could have actually contributed to the ground being more cement-like. But again, they didn't test it, so we don't know. So you can't say it was just a lawn. It was just grass. It was just soft. It was like soft grass with snow. It was like a pillow. We don't know that. The fact that his head had complex fractures makes me believe the ground was hard as fuck. That's what I think. Midwest Plains, yes, but coastal area? Johnny, are you from here? Because it gets cold as fuck in the coastal area. Yeah, and even up north, like where I am, it doesn't even get as cold as it does up there. So do you know what you're talking about? Then he writes these dates, January, high of and a low of. Okay, so you Googled high and low on these dates, and you're assuming that just because you Googled that you know for a fact that the ground wasn't frozen. You say hardly frozen temperatures. You don't know for sure if that spot of the ground got above. This freezing is 32 degrees Fahrenheit. And you wrote low of 28, high of 27, low of 12, a high of 27, low of 23, a high of 36. Okay, but again, and then a low of 25. So, but what Dr. Rentschler said, the star defense witness who claimed, according to all y'all who don't listen fully, that there's no way possible it could have happened, he said himself, yes, the ground can be frozen as hard as cement. And yes, I didn't test it. No, I didn't test it. I didn't test it, so how could he know? So, and he said you have to do a series of tests and this and that and the other thing. Not just Google high and low, because that is not enough to prove whether the ground was frozen. Just like I can't say for sure it's frozen, because yeah, you pointed out there was a couple of days in that stretch where there was a couple of degrees above freezing as a high, but we don't know exactly where and when, and was it in that spot? We don't know. Nobody tested it. So you don't know, and I don't know. And that's reasonable doubt. And that's why this video is titled "The Jury Got It Right." Why the jury got it right? Because reasonable doubt equals not guilty, but I don't think that means she didn't do it. And then Johnny, you also wrote, why do you doubt the plow driver? I don't doubt the plow driver. I believe, and you're actually responding to Barb, but I'm answering. I believe that the plow driver did not see John. I absolutely believe that. That does not mean that he wasn't there, because what that means is that the plow driver didn't see him. What that means is that it's very possible that the plow driver was not looking where John was, so he didn't see him. Maybe he was looking over here and John was over here, and he didn't have any idea there was a dead body over there. So he didn't look over there. He looked over there and he didn't see him. And that's true. So does that definitively prove, just because one guy didn't see him, does that prove beyond a reasonable doubt? No. And what about all the other 12 people coming in and out? I agree. Like I said in my other video, I agree with myself. Maybe they didn't see him because they were not looking over there. They were not imagining he would be over there. There's nothing over there to look at. There's no lights over there. It's just a dark part of the lawn over there. And it was a blizzard and it was cold and they were going into their car and they were talking to each other. And that's not that hard to believe. It's not at all hard to believe to me that somebody didn't see something that they weren't looking for in the dark, in the cold, in a blizzard at midnight or whatever. That's not unbelievable. It's not like he was splayed out on the porch where they had to step over him, and that's not believable. It's not like he was, right off the walkway where his foot was sticking out and they had to walk by it, and that's not believable. He was 50 yards over there in the bushes or in the snow, in the dark, in a blizzard. So why do people think that that's hard to believe, that people wouldn't see somebody like that on the ground, covered in snow, or just a dark, shadowy thing you're not even looking at? All right, you also said the dog bites. You just say it like it's a fact. The dog bites. You mean the scratches on his arm that some people testified could be dog bites, maybe? And some people testified could be scratches from the taillight, could be scratches from things on the ground, could be scratches from the frozen ground, could be scratches from other unknown things. Yes, 2 witnesses testified that those scratches looked a lot like dog bites. They didn't find any dog DNA in there. They didn't prove they were dog bites. Somebody said they were dog bites. That does not make them dog bites. So the dog bites means you bit it, you ate it, you swallowed it, you believed it. You believe this 100%, and that's your right. But I don't believe those were dog bites at all. They didn't even look like dog bites to me. And I Googled dog bites just like you Googled the weather. Okay, and yeah, there were what do you call them? Experts who said they looked a lot like dog bites. That does not mean that they were dog bites. Maybe they were dog bites. Maybe they were an animal scratching at him in the ground. Maybe they were from impact. He scratched the ground. Maybe it was from supposedly, like Quentin said, that somebody said, and I heard Lally say, there were microscopic pieces of taillight plastic in his shirt, 16 of an inch by 16 of an inch or whatever. Lally said that. I didn't see the photo where I could be like, yep, I saw that. If I saw that photo, that would blow reasonable doubt out the water for me. Show me the proof that there's microscopic pieces of taillight in John O'Keefe's shirt. Reasonable doubt is over for me. I don't know, what really gets me is people who think that science is infallible, that scientists and their tests are 100 completely, I mean, not everybody believes that. And actually, as I've said already, science is an art. Scientists are human beings. There's human error, there's testing error, there's the wrong data, there's lacking data, there's incomplete data, which both of those 2 ARCA employees, or whatever you call them, expert witnesses, Dr. Crash Daddy Daniel Wolf and Dr. Rentschler, there was a whole bunch of stuff that they didn't even have when they were doing their analysis. And it's easy to say after the fact, oh no, none of that would have mattered. But you don't actually know that because you didn't have that information when you did your analysis. So now to say none of that lacking information would have mattered makes me feel that you're really actually arrogant and you just want to be right, and that's not a good scientific method. Not acknowledging, although they did actually do it. They did acknowledge in their report, and then when Lally asked them the question, they both acknowledged it, that they acknowledged that this report could change if they were to gain new information that they didn't have. And that's a question that Lally asked them both, which was correct. All right, and then also, I'm not going to read everything you said, Johnny Reb, but I will also read that you said, also, I don't think you can convince me that a veteran cop organization is as dumb as they looked on the investigation. The investigation was done with creative incompetence. So that's the thing about Trooper Proctor, is that the things that he said in his group chat that he thought was going to be private does lend one to think, did he break the taillight so he could plant better evidence to really nail this CUNTCU next Tuesday with a leaky balloon knot, leaks poop? I find it believable to think that Trooper Proctor could have planted more evidence. However, like you said yourself, the Dighton cop who watched the vehicle for about an hour, well, Trooper's interview reads, said, quote, there was some damage to the right rear taillight. The taillight was not completely damaged. It was cracked and a piece was missing. Okay, But that still does not mean she didn't hit him. So I think it's possible that Karen, I actually do believe, I believe she did hit him with her car. Despite what Dr. Rentschler and Dr. Wolf said, because of the fact that they didn't have a whole bunch of information. And they also admitted she could. That's what my last video was about. He literally said he chose extremely biased words. The car could have nudged him. Just a gentle little, The car did it, not her, and it was a nudge. It was like a little love tap. But when you take out all that bias and all those, steps of separation, and you say it flat out, Dr. Rentschler admitted that Karen could have crashed into John, which could have knocked him down, hitting the ground, which could have been frozen as hard as concrete or cement, which could have cracked his skull, and also could account for just a few scratches on his arm, just a boo-boo on his knee, but enough. He didn't have to have been thrown 30 feet. The ground could have been actually hard enough to have cracked his skull, which is what I actually believe happened. To me, the idea that yes, I think that it's possible that both can be true. I don't believe that Higgins or the teenager Colin Albert or Brian Albert or any of the girls, visiting, did anything to John. I do believe that John never went into the house. And I was thinking, so I screen recorded Jen McCabe's 911 call, which is very disturbing and troubling and upsetting. And then I ran it through to try to get captions, and it's really hard to hear captions. And there's a few things where I think I heard what I think I heard, and I tried to put up some captions on the screen, and I'm going to play that as well. Someone had said, let's see, Petra Willems says, how did he end up face down? I don't know how you got that information. He was not face down. And then Marjorie Wolfcott says they testified that they rolled him over, which I never remembered that. So I listened and looked through the transcript, and nope, I didn't find that. So So I responded to that person. I never heard anybody say that they flipped her over. And then I quoted a couple of articles I found, quote, the trial's first few days detailed, my kids are being loud over there. The trial's first few days detailed the futile efforts that the first responders tried to save O'Keefe. They found him face up when they arrived just before dawn on January 29th. And, quote, prosecutors appeared early on to be relying on Reed's own words to get a conviction. Most of the first week has been dominated by first responders who detailed a harrowing scene that morning in January of 2022. They come upon John O'Keefe lying face up and Reed distraught and screaming near the body, appearing to have blood on her mouth from giving CPR. And, quote, Jennifer McCabe finds John O'Keefe's body with Karen Reed. McCabe said that as they arrived at 34 Fairview, Reed starts screaming, there he is, and bolted out of the car towards O'Keefe. Quote, she straddles John and she lifts up his shirt, and then she lifted up her shirt and went to lay on him, McCabe said. So, and then I played the 911 call at the end of this where you can listen to it yourself. I think the call, I listened to it on a few channels and that's all I heard. I didn't hear anything that was cut off in the beginning. Maybe something got cut off in the beginning. Maybe somebody said it and I couldn't find it. It's so silly to me. Like, people are like, obviously you didn't watch the trial. Obviously you didn't watch the whole trial. Like, so you think that just because somebody has a different opinion than you, that means that they didn't watch it? Maybe somebody thinks differently than you. Maybe somebody puts more weight on, to me, the fact that those scientists, those PhD accident reconstructionists, they said that they didn't think that she hit him. But then when Dr. Rentschler admitted that the car could have nudged him, the car could have, without seeing him, nudged him, which could have knocked him down and where he could have hit his head. And so y'all didn't hear that part? You're so dead set and clinging to pieces of testimony, but you're leaving out this other stuff that's really important. You're leaving out the fact that there was a whole bunch of information that they didn't have when they did their report. And so you're also relying on a half-baked report. And what were they told? Supposedly they were given some information and they were asked to do a reconstruction. Here comes my kid. Well, it's 12:38 a.m. and what are you doing? I'm recording, huh?
We're both making ramen.
Why are you making ramen at 1 a.m.?
It's also not 1 a.m.
It's just about 1 a.m. Are you going to just sit there while I'm finishing up my video? I mean, if you're that interested in it, go for it. Okay, so then this stupid idiot writes this comment. I'm not going to even bother to say your name because you're dumb. And you wrote, hard as concrete. It was a fucking law on you. Something, I don't even know what that means. So then I said, do you enjoy making an arse of yourself in public? Besides the fact that Dr. Rentschler, the bioengineer who accident reconstructionist himself, admitted, yes, the ground can be as hard as concrete. And you got to do testing, and nobody did testing. And then Lally said, did you do the testing? Can you do the testing? He said, I could have. And he said, did you? He said, no. And then, like somebody else pointed out, Lally is the one who was supposed to have done the testing and supposed to point it out, supposed to prove to us. You're correct. That's why I said reasonable doubt. I think she did hit him with her car and kill him. I do believe that. It just doesn't make any sense that anything else happened in my mind. To you, it might make sense. To you, it might make sense that Brian Higgins punched him and killed him to death because he was jealous? He already said he had weird vibes from her. He was already over her. There was literal proof that when she texted him the last time, yes, the very last time, he wrote, what did he write? Like, hello, or, well. Maybe he was like, she's weird. She's literally acting like she doesn't even know I exist. Maybe he was totally fine with the fact that she was there with her boyfriend. Like, the whole time he was like, aren't you with John? I'm confused. Why won't you answer my questions? And then when she had texted him the last time, his response was, I thought you were good. How the fuck is that proof of a man who's so jealous he's gonna kill someone when he's like, you're weird, creepy vibes, and I thought you was good. I like John. What's your end goal here? That's not a man who's ragefully jealous. Come on. Like, I get what, this is what I'm saying. I believe that if the defense had pushed harder on reasonable doubt, focused all their energy on reasonable doubts, don't even waste your time with this ridiculous notion about third-party culprit. Focus on the fact that there's genuine reasonable doubt. At least some people. My reasonable doubt has to do with, did she do it on purpose that night? That's what Lally never proved. That's what he talked about those jealous things and those angry messages and the angry voicemails, but they didn't sound like murder. They sounded like unhinged, jealous, insecure, cringe, girl, go get some therapy. Okay, and maybe she, like, I could be convinced that she hit him with her vehicle while she was drunk and left him there to die. Did she know it? That part I don't know. Did she do it on purpose? For me, unless Lally has some serious new evidence and plot lines and like does the second trial all around different, bring out new witnesses, give us some more testimony, paint a clearer picture, delete a bunch of extra shit that's just like literally confusing and diluting everything. You know, that's why I feel like, even though I absolutely believe that she killed that man with her car, because it doesn't make any other sense to me. Yes, the fact that his body was very unlike, very not typical of a car crash. Not typical, but possible, like the coroner said. Most likely not likely, but possible, like Dr. Rentschler said. Could have those been dog bites? Maybe, but they don't really know, which is what those witnesses actually said. So when you take a witness's words and you omit part of it, or you delete half of it, or you fail to acknowledge that they themselves said could be, or maybe isn't, but nobody ever said absolutely definitively, look, here's a video. We saw him getting beaten up and dragged out. We saw this man slip and hit his head on the frozen ground while nobody was there. We have absolute proof that she didn't do it, that they didn't do it. Nobody has that. So all of the bits of evidence that they've put out is circumstantial, is theoretical, and as far as his injuries on his body, yes, it's very unlike any motor vehicle, but nobody ever said that it's absolutely impossible. There's no way humanly possible. Nobody said that. So all of the people who are so absolutely certainly convinced of it, I feel like you're kind of gullible. Or like, what about, how do you fill in the plot holes then? If you absolutely think that she did not kill him, she didn't hit him with her vehicle, then what do you think happened? Because they sure as hell didn't prove it. They didn't prove jack shit. So what do you think was so proven? And you mentioned the Sallyport video. Yes, the Sallyport video was flipped, and that could be really weird. It could be really weird. There were parts of the video where there was no video, so it was like jump cut. And that could be really weird too. Or maybe what they testified to, that it's motion activated, and maybe there's like a slight delay, and that makes it look like people just appear out of nowhere because they were walking across the room and it took the camera 10 seconds to actually activate, and so it looks like, boop, there he appears. That's also believable. The fact that it was reversed and that there were cuts out, to me, could be just actually not on purpose, or it could be on purpose. For me, I can't say, so I have to just throw that away because it could be either one. But it doesn't prove, it's not like it proves that they did something, and it doesn't prove that they didn't do anything. It doesn't show me how her taillight looked at the scene. That's what I want to know. What did her taillight look like at the scene of the that morning? Because wasn't it her SUV that they drove up in? And you said you don't believe that nobody had body cams and nobody had cameras on their vehicles. Well, there was a guy who had a camera on his vehicle. I don't remember his name at this moment. At 12:46 a.m. on Monday, July 8th. I don't remember, 2024. I don't remember the name of that. What, was it Buchanan? I don't think so. Maybe, I don't know. But somebody had a camera because we saw that video. Remember? So it wasn't nobody. But I do agree that they did a very bad job. Whether it was creative incompetence or actual incompetence, that's what I said. maybe they always sucked at doing things, and this just amplified it out to the world that they suck and they've always sucked. Or maybe this was a unique case where it was like that. Or isn't there some other case where there might have been something shady? I don't know. Maybe that's what the FBI is investigating. Are they just investigating Trooper Proctor's cases and him and his personal conduct and professional or unprofessional conduct or misconduct? Or are they investigating the whole entire Canton Police Department? Are they investigating just, crimes? Like, what are they doing? I don't know. They didn't talk about it. They didn't testify to it. It hasn't been publicly made evidence. So, again, I don't know. So just to wrap it up, there could be plenty of things that I missed, but I don't need to go over every single thing again. Chris K. Hensley said 25 miles per hour in reverse does not equal a nudge, LOLOL. But again, if they proved that she went in reverse that fast because of the key cycle data or whatever, they didn't prove that she hit him at that speed. So somebody, rubber-faced mama says you're entertaining. SB Ed 4DW says good show. Barb thinks that Karen be hanging out with Casey Anthony. All right, thank you so much for listening to this video, and have a good night. Please feel free to share, like, comment, say a good comment, say something nice and thoughtful, or at least thought-provoking, but don't be an ass, don't be an arse, don't be an idiot. If you think you're so dead set and sure about a thing, why don't you Google it and do a little bit of research first before you make yourself a total idiot in the comments. Okay, thanks. Bye. It is 2:21 a.m. I almost fell asleep. And then I got up to just brush my teeth, and I thought, let me finish saving this. And then I thought, you know what? I might as well read that last comment of this smart aleck. Trying to be a smart aleck. Okay? That same dude, Johnny. So he thinks it doesn't get cold in the Boston area. It does, honey. And then he writes to me at Cat Love Jamie Peach. For 500 points, Alex, answer is when the state can't prove anything about how a crime happened. Question, what is not guilty? So then I snapped back at Johnny. Double jeopardy for 1,000, Johnny. Listening comprehension is the category. Answer, what Kat said she would have voted in the video if she had been on the jury. It's like, did you listen? I think there are people who read the title and they comment. Or you listen to like 2 minutes and then you comment. Or you listen to 10 seconds and then you comment. And you think you're smart. You think you're all that. You think you got it all figured out. You think that you're so self-righteous and you can like be snarky and rude and disrespectful to other people. You think that you're right. You think you know it all. You think somehow you magically have the answers that nobody else was able to unanimously agree on. I'm talking about reasonable doubt. I'm talking about not guilty. Not guilty, not because I think she didn't do it, but because the government, the Commonwealth, did not prove their case to me beyond a reasonable doubt. Maybe they proved it to you beyond a reasonable doubt. Maybe next time there's do-over trial number 2, it will be proven to me beyond a reasonable doubt. And I'll be saying she's guilty. But for now, despite the fact that I do believe that she did actually hit him with her vehicle and did kill him and is probably guilty of vehicular manslaughter and probably guilty of a DUI enhancement, and maybe even guilty of leaving the scene of a fatal crime enhancement. Maybe she really did know it. Could they stretch it all the way from maybe she hit him and maybe she knew it to she did this shit on purpose? That is yet to be seen. So please leave comments. But you know what? If you can't be bothered to listen to the video, then maybe rethink leaving a comment. If you're only going to listen to a couple of minutes, then maybe don't leave a comment. But whatever. Engagement is engagement. So thank you, and I'll see you in the next one. Oh, coming up is the 4.5 minutes of the very terrible 911 call. You can't hear the wiper going as much, and it doesn't sound as eerie, but it's still very eerie. It's very heartbreaking, and this is part of why I felt like, did she hit him? Could she have hit him? If she hit him, did she know she hit him? Did she just hit him by accident in a drunken rage? I don't know. What do you think? What if Jen knew at all? What if Jen et al. Knew? What if Jen did actually see Karen's SUV pull up that night and saw her pull away? And so she knew. What if Jen actually knew for a fact that Karen had hit John? So it is 3 a.m. and I really should be sleeping right now. And I just wanted to add this little extra part that I had thought of while I was listening to Jen McCabe's 911 call. It occurred to me that she testified that she was waiting for Karen to arrive that night, and she saw her SUV. She looked out the window and she saw her there. And then she said, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes later, she looked out the window, saw that Karen was still there, but in a different spot, closer to the flagpole. Then she looked out again, and she was gone. And she said she assumed maybe they were arguing and they just decided to go home. So she didn't testify to whether or not they had a history of arguing, because that would be like more prejudice than probative, and it wasn't relevant to that particular night. So they didn't ask her questions like that. My hair's ready to go to sleep. But for all the people who are so dead set on this idea that Jen McCabe Googled how's long to die in cold at 2:27 p.m., which I believe was proven, to me it was proven that that's not true. That was just the browser cache, and that the experts who testified to the search data made me feel confident that it was not an actual separate search, because that just wouldn't make any sense. And I get it that that's what the defense wants to do, is to confuse you. But what I'm pointing out is, let's just say hypothetically that Jen really was Karen's friend at the time, and she did like her, and she did think, she's coming to the party at my house with my friend John. John and Jen were more friends than Jen and Karen, but Jen was still being friends with Karen. So just imagine for a moment all these people who despise Jen and think she's shady and think that her testimony looked like she was lying and covering something up. What if she actually knew? Like, what if Karen really did hit John and Jen actually knew that? She saw that they were there. She saw that the car moved. She saw that they left. She knew John never came to the party because she was there at the party. Every other single person in that party testified to the fact that John never came into the party. And even Brian Higgins supposedly saying there was somebody tall with dark hair. To me, that sounded like Colin Albert. But again, what if Jen actually was like, oh my fucking God, what if she was at the party, like she said, and she saw that Karen had pulled up. She saw that they were out there not coming in. She was checking on them, and then they were gone. And then the next thing she knew, 4 something in the morning, she's getting a phone call from Karen saying, I don't know where John is. Last I saw him, I left him at the waterfall. And then Jen is like, no, I saw you at my sister's house. Brian Albert's wife. Was it Heather Albert? 34 Fairview Road. That was Jen McCabe's sister's house. She was there that night with her husband Matt for her nephew's birthday. And so if she knew, no, you were at the bar, then I saw you pull up, and then I saw that you had moved, and then I saw that you left, and I saw that y'all never came in. Neither one of you came in. So now you're telling me you don't know where he is. You left him at the bar. No, you didn't leave him at the bar. Okay, and so people are trying to make Jen McCabe out to be a villain because she knew that? So again, let's just say she knew that, and that was true because that's what she testified to, and I believe it. Other people testified to it as well. So she knows her friend Karen and John came to the house, but they stayed outside in the SUV, and then they were gone after the SUV had moved. Now it's 4 something in the morning, and her friend is calling her saying, I don't know where he is. I left him at the bar. And she's like, you did not leave him at the bar. And then they go to the house, and as they're pulling up to the house in a fucking blizzard, mind you, both Jen McCabe and Carrie Roberts individually testified that Karen saw it. There he is! While they were pulling up to the house, which they thought was crazy because they didn't see anything. And then Karen runs out. Now, somebody was commenting, oh, they flipped him over. Well, I didn't hear it. I didn't see it. I didn't hear it on the 911 call. I didn't hear it in the testimony. I didn't read it in an article. Maybe I missed it. But everywhere I've seen, it was reported that he was laying face up and that Karen ran straight to his body. She pulled up his shirt. She straddled him, yanked up his shirt, yanked up her shirt, and laid on him belly to belly, trying to warm him up. So nobody said she flipped him over. And even if they did, what difference does it make? Somebody said, how would he have fallen face down? Well, when you get hit by something and you're falling, who the hell knows which way you're going to go on the way down? That is not proof of anything, either way, anyway, in my opinion. So if we imagine that Jen saw them at the bar, Jen saw that they pulled up but then never came in, Jen saw that the SUV had moved, Jen got the phone call frantic from a frantic crazy Karen in the morning saying, I don't know where he is, I don't know where he is. Could I have hit him? Could I have hit him? Could I have hit him? They pull up to the house, her sister's house. They pull up and Karen runs out of the vehicle, straddles a dead man. You could hear on the call, Jen is saying, I think he's dead. Then she said something about him getting out of the car. I couldn't hear it. But, you know, what I thought when I watched her testify was she seems credible to me. She seems like a really angry, frustrated, exacerbated, fed the fuck up. I ain't got 2 seconds of patience left for you. Not for you, Alan Jackson. Not for you, Nettie. Not for fucking Karen. Not for all these free Karen readers. Not for nobody. She's like, I don't give a flying fuck about y'all. I am over this. You killed my friend, and now you're trying to blame it on all of us. I searched house long to die in cold because you told me to. You were grabbing my hands in the freezing cold and saying, Google it! And then making up this whole big thing because of the Celebrite data that looked like she, even though it didn't look, to me, it didn't look like she Googled it at that time. It looked like there was a thing that said this thing and then it was deleted. And the way the experts explained it to me sounded totally credible, made way more sense than, why would she leave him there to die? Like, that's the thing that they could never, that the defense, in my opinion, could never, the hump that they could never get over with their third-party culprit. Somebody else did it. None of those people seemed like they would want John dead, and none of them seemed like the type of person who would leave a man to die in the snow. Especially not a man that they freaking cared about and liked and thought was a really good man and knew he was raising his orphaned niece and nephew. Like, why would they leave that man to die? It makes no sense. It just doesn't make sense. Does that mean I think that Trooper Proctor wasn't corrupt? No. Does that mean I think that he shouldn't lose his job? No. Does that mean I think that him getting a paid vacation essentially is not a good enough thing? Or I don't think it's good enough. And I don't know if he broke the taillight to make it look worse so he could be sure. You know, maybe that's what happened. She hit him. The taillight was cracked. Maybe it was cracked because John had thrown the glass at it. Or maybe, I mean, they said there were pieces of plastic embedded in his shirt. Why didn't they show that? Why didn't they get better pictures and video? You know, to me, if the man really wanted to, like, that's what makes no sense, I guess. It's like, if he really wanted to put it on her, why didn't he do a better investigation? But then that brings me back to, was it, you know, incompetence on purpose? Or was he genuinely just a fuck up? Like, you had the fucking thing, but you couldn't because you were so, like, rage directed. You know, you were being led by rage instead of professionalism and get the shit done. Do every interview properly. You know, and that's what I'm saying. One trooper who's not in charge of deciding whether or not they have body cams can't be blamed for a systemic department-wide issue. If nobody has body cams and that's just not how they do it, then how is that his fault? Did they all have body cams and he turned his off? No. So, also about the Jen McCabe 911 call. A couple people saying in the comments that she said in the 911 call that she flipped him over, and then I said, no, I didn't hear that. I screen recorded a 4-minute 911 call, which is at the end of this video. I didn't hear her say that at all. Maybe there was a first 911 call that I didn't hear. I was not able to find that. I did look online. What I found was a lot of people believe that Jen is a liar, and there's a lot of hate towards Jen. If Jen actually knew what was happening, if Jen was completely aware of the fact that Karen actually was at that house at 34 Fairview with John in the car, and then they pulled away, and John never came in the house, and then she gets a phone call saying from Karen, I don't know where he is, and then she goes through the whole process finding John dead on the lawn. For her, it must have been very clear and obvious that Karen did it. She testified that Karen said, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. So, again, for all the people who think Jen is a liar, for all the people who think that Jen is a liar and believe that everything she said is a lie because she's covering up the murder, then, you know, you're not going to believe it. But some people think that Jen was actually credible and that maybe she was justifiably frustrated. Maybe she felt like this woman hit my friend with her car and he's dead, and now she's turning around and blaming all of us. Wouldn't that make you pissed off too? I don't know. It's just like people on the comments are just, wow. I'm starting to lose faith in humanity when I see some of these comments. It's just like, what makes me really confused is that people seem that they believe that they are so superiorly intelligent. People believe that their perception of something is 100% accurate, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of awareness that you could be wrong, that the information could have been incomplete, that there was obvious disagreement, and there was a lot of it on a lot of issues. So I feel like somebody walking into a mud flinging contest and then being like, it's totally clear, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with me is that I'm not arrogant. What's wrong with me is that I actually think about things in a very thorough way. What's wrong with me is that I'm able to see multiple sides and multiple facets of a situation, and I'm able to look past the surface. And the point is that all of this data, information, hypotheticals, could be this, could be that, could be yes, could be no, what not, and what have you, and possibilities and all that stuff. I don't believe that they did a thorough investigation. I do believe that the investigation was shoddy at best and possibly contaminated, possibly some corruption, possibly some real trying to prove that she did it. But I really also kind of feel like if they were really trying to prove that she did it, wouldn't they have had stronger evidence? And I get it. If people say, well, she's innocent, like somebody said, this means she's 100% innocent. I don't agree. I don't see it that way. I'm not interpreting that way. You know, I think Trooper Proctor was a terrible trooper, and he did a absolutely shitty investigation. And I think that if he had done a better job, he could have gotten more evidence. I think Prosecutor Lally should have had more time to do more investigation and gather more evidence. I think that he should have had maybe other witnesses who had more information, like there was 68 witnesses or whatever, but, you know, I don't know. Is he going to really do the whole thing again? Is he going to change his strategy? Is he going to add more information, more evidence, more witnesses, better questioning? Is he going to, what if any, sort of, through this thing again 5,000 times? What if anything, sort of? What if anything, sort of, is not going to get you there? I don't think. But that's my video. There might be a bunch of stuff that I missed out. There might be things that I got wrong. There might be things that I misinterpreted. Some people will agree with me. Some people will disagree with me. And, you know, and that's why I believe that the hung jury was the accurate end result, because if people cannot agree unanimously, then that means it's a hung jury. And that's correct, in my opinion. See you in the next one. I just think it's really interesting, like, if you think about that, what if she really did do it? Again, whether it was intentional on her part, that's another story. That's a whole nother level of charges that I feel like they started to get. It's like they started to lay down the groundwork, but they never filled in the gaps. So are they going to fill in the gaps? Are they going to recharge her and fill in the gaps? I'm going to turn this light off. Look, it's real dark. And it is, it's 3:13 a.m. now on Monday, July 8th, 2020. July? Oh my God, it's already July 8th. Wow. All right. Well, these are my thoughts on this one. See you in the next one. Thanks for your support. And I love all the comments when people say that I'm funny and entertaining, and you guys make me laugh. You crack me up. I love it. Okay, see you soon. Bye.
Yes, I need someone to see 34th Yearby Road, Vietnam. There's a man passed out in the snow. Yeah, I don't know why he did that. I can put that. Okay, I know. Where's the blanket? I don't see blanket, Terry. Yes, I need someone. John is 46 years old. I don't know. He got out of the car and it could be an operator. Carrie? I don't. I know I'm on the phone with the ambulance. I know, honey. Get off. Sorry, you gotta get off. Yes, I can stop. You gotta stop.
Which is a morphologic feature of a laceration, is what makes it different from an incised wound or from a cut, because again, the skin is crushed and now it's more irregular. The edges are more irregular. And then above that laceration, I noted that there was a scrape as well associated with it. So that was one injury.
In this film, if I could have the next page of that. Doctor, if I could direct you to the next page of that exhibit before you. And it's going to, if you could, we'll sort of mark on the top of that diagram.
Yes.
Now, Doctor, before we get into a diagram that's up on the screen, if I could ask just a bit more, if you could expound upon when you use the term ecchymosis, what exactly does that mean in specific reference to the area of the eyes?
Ecchymosis are a word that we use to describe bruising. Orbital ecchymosis or pit.
Subarachnoid hemorrhage. Doctor, if I could ask you with reference to, if you could illustrate with the laser pointer on the diagram up on the screen, as far as the subarachnoid hemorrhage, subdural hematoma, as far as the bleeding within the brain, what, if any, impact that has on the skull as far as the fractures are concerned, or this building up of pressure itself?
The subarachnoid hemorrhage is a thin layer of hemorrhage on top of the brain, directly on top of the brain under the leptomeninges. The main effect, or I guess one of the blood, and it can cause significant shift into the brain. That's not something that we had here. Here we had some subdural hemorrhage, but not enough that it was what we call space occupying. But it was present. So it was due to bridging veins in the dura being injured from the trauma, from the fractures. And in terms of the effect that all these injuries have, the subdural and the subarachnoid and the skull fractures, anytime the brain is injured, it responds by swelling. And the skull is a closed space without the ability to expand, unlike the skin, where you can have a bruise or a significant amount of blood accumulate under the skin. In the skull, once the brain starts to react to the injury and it starts to swell, there's nowhere to go except for down. And that's the foramen magnum. That is the area where the brainstem and the spinal cord will run out. You know, spinal cord connects, obviously, the brain to the rest of the body. And this is one of the few spaces that the brain can try and squeeze into because he has nowhere else to go. So herniation, brain swelling and herniation are a general response that the brain has to any sort of trauma.
And Ms. Gilman, thank you very much. You can take that down, Ms. Ross, we can have the lights back on. Now, may I approach Sister Retreat?
Yes.
Now, Doctor, with respect to the head injury, specifically the fracture, what, if any, opinion can you give or can you say in regard to the type of force or amount of force necessary to cause the fracture to the skull that you observed with regard to Mr. O'Keefe?
I can't really give you a number. I'm not a physicist. I can tell you that the skull is a pretty thick bone. It takes considerable amount of force to fracture the skull. So that was a pretty considerable impact.
Now, with respect to the injuries to Mr. O'Keefe's head and the onset of hypothermia, what, if any, opinion do you have with regard to the timing of those respective to each other?
Well, I do believe the injuries, the blunt impact injuries, were sustained first. These are not injuries that are immediately lethal. This is not something that would cause death in seconds, and therefore Mr. O'Keefe may have been incapacitated by the injuries or knocked out, if you will, and was not able to get himself into a warmer environment, and therefore hypothermia set in, given the environmental conditions and given the clothing on the body, or the lack of clothing, I should say, no big jacket or anything like that.
Now, when you say something as far as some type of injury being immediately lethal, you give an example of that?
The one that forensic pathologists like to use is a gunshot wound to the head that goes from one side to the other, disrupting the neural systems of the brain and causing the person to immediately drop and die within seconds or milliseconds. this is not that kind of injury. This is an injury that took a little bit of time to develop, as is manifested by the fact that we have some bleeding, which means that the heart is still pumping and blood is still coming out of the vessels.
And so I guess to that point, as far as what was it from your examination and your findings and your review of sort of the overall materials that leads you to believe that the head injuries happened prior to hypothermia setting in?
Again, the findings of hypothermia, the blunt impact injuries, if someone is, it's not completely out of the realm of possibility that someone becomes hypothermic and then falls as a result. But the hypothermia would continue along with, the brain injuries that took some time to develop. So in my opinion, I believe the impact, the injury to the head came first. Mr. O'Keefe was most likely incapacitated or unable to move into a warmer environment, and then the hypothermia set in.
And if you can, what, if anything, can you say as to the sort of, in contrast to sort of the bullet to the head or the instantaneous death, what, if anything, can you say as to the time that this would take to manifest itself as far as the injury to the head and the hypothermic state?
Again, I can't give you specifics. I would say this was definitely in the matter of minutes, many minutes, or hours.
Dr. Squaybell, you did observe a minor abrasion to Mr. O'Keefe's right knee, is that correct?
Correct.
And what part of the knee was that on, if you recall?
It was on the side, on the lateral side of his right knee.
And by lateral, sort of the side that faces away from the body, is that correct?
Correct.
We were asked whether or not the small injuries on Mr. O'Keefe's face could possibly be from a punch, is that correct?
Correct.
We said that's one of the possibilities, is that correct?
Yes.
What are some of the other possibilities?
Could be impact during a fall. It could be coming in contact with any blunt object in the snow.
Would glass be a possibility as far as a blunt object?
It could be under certain circumstances.
Piece of plastic under certain circumstances as far as a blunt object, would that be also a possibility?
Correct, yes.
Now, as far as the abrasion near the laceration on the back of Mr. O'Keefe's head, you were asked some questions about whether or not that could be from drag, correct?
Correct.
Now, as far as injuries or abrasions concerning dragging, would it be typical to see just one isolated abrasion in the area of a laceration?
Not typical, but possible.
Could that also be a result of the blunt impacts or, as one of the possibilities you testified before, from hitting the ground?
Yes.
Now, you were asked about hitting the ground and specifically hitting concrete. Would that impact injuries to the back of Mr. O'Keefe's head also be consistent with striking his head on frozen ground?
I'm sorry.
No, I'll allow it.
Can you repeat the question?
You were asked a question on cross-examination about the laceration and abrasion to the back of Mr. O'Keefe's head being consistent with striking his head on concrete, correct?
Yes.
Would that also be consistent with striking his head on frozen ground?
Could be, yes.
We were asked about certain wounds as being a possibility of defensive wounds. What are some of the other types of defensive wounds that you would expect to see that you did not see in this case?
I would expect to see, or I have seen, multiple bruising to the, again, posterior aspects of the forearms, I have seen cuts, lacerations, depending on how a person might be defending themselves, the position of their arms.
And would that also includes breaks in the fingernails and fractures to the hands?
Objection.
Watch the form, Mr. Lally. Sustained.
What, if anything else, would that include?
It might include bruising to the knuckles. It might include broken fingers.
Now, with reference to the injuries that you were asked about with respect to Mr. O'Keefe's right hand, would those also be consistent with impact from a blunt object as well?
They are blunt impact injuries, yes.
Now, again, if I could, just with reference to, you were asked about different possibilities with the skull fractures and bleeding in the brain. What is your opinion as to sort of how that was caused and sort of, if you could again just go through your opinion as to the head injuries, the skull fracture, and the bleeding?
Objection.
Ask it again, Mr. Lally, in a different way.
You were asked about some possibilities. What is your opinion as to how those injuries were sustained or manifested in Mr. O'Keefe?
I don't know how they came to be. I described them and I stated previously that they are consistent with a fall to the back of the head.
And so I'm sorry, Doctor. My question is more geared towards as far as the single impact to the back of the skull and then sort of radiating fractures in the skull. If you could explain that in reference to the subdural hemorrhage, subarachnoid hemorrhage, and the ecchymoses that you observed.
Again, a single impact with a fall could cause all the injuries that we're seeing in the brain and the skull.
Thank you. I'm not further.
No further questions.
All right, doctor, you are all set. Thank you very much.
CatLoveDreamingPeach.com